Hello, everyone, and welcome to On the Safe Side, a monthly podcast hosted by the editors of Safety and Health magazine, the official magazine of the National Safety Council. This is Alan Ferguson, Associate Editor at Safety and Health. With me, as always, are my fellow Associate Editors, Barry Bettino and Kevin Drewley. Hello, gentlemen.
Hey, happy spring.
Hey, Alan.
Thank you all for joining us for the March 2025 episode, number 61 in our podcast history, and our 5-year anniversary. This month's episode is sponsored by the National Association of Safety Professionals. And before we get started, we know that many of you have had a unique journey into the safety profession, and we'd like to hear about it for our My Story feature in our magazine. Submit a personal story or encourage a safety colleague to do so by emailing us at safehealth@nsc.org. In this month's episode, we'll examine some of the stories from the March issue of Safety and Health magazine. Jason Kunz, keynote speaker for NSC's upcoming Spring Safety Conference in Charlotte, will join us for 5 Questions With, and we'll share some of our memories from the first 5 years of On the Safe Side in the In Case You Missed It segment. Is everybody ready? Let's go.
The March issue of Safety and Health contains a diverse array of feature stories. Susan Vargas, a longtime contributor to the magazine, examines the issue of why it still is difficult for women to get personal protective equipment that fits and what safety professionals can do to assist. Equitable PPE fit is a serious occupational safety and health issue, says CPWR, the Center for Construction Research and Training. CPWR goes on to tell us that PPE that does not fit properly will not adequately protect against workplace hazards and may even create new hazards. To that end, one area in the spotlight in the magazine's product focus section is women's PPE. And the section includes products, of course, but also a further look at some trends to be mindful of. With March being National Ladder Safety Month, Alan has prepared a list of 10 common ladder safety mistakes to help safety professionals avoid ladder-related injuries. Among the mistakes, not using ladders for their intended purpose. They are not braces, planks, or scaffolds, as you will learn if you don't know already. As always, there is plenty of additional occupational safety news and perspectives to check out on the issue. You can look for it in your mailbox or online at safetyandhealthmagazine.com.
Workplace safety isn't just about physical hazards, it's about mental well-being too. That's why the National Association of Safety Professionals offers the Psychological Health and Safety Manager course. This training helps you identify and address psychological risks, creating a healthier, more productive work environment. With expert-led training, professional certifications, and real-world safety solutions, NASP takes the practical approach to workplace safety training. Visit naspweb.com, that's naspweb.com, today and take the next step in protecting your team, both mind and body. Safety and health professionals are a unique breed. They are caring, intelligent, focused, and always seeking solutions to issues that arise in the workplace. Those traits are not an all-encompassing list, though. Our guest this month, Jason Kunz, has much more to say about the habits of safety pros, and he will do so April 24th in Charlotte, North Carolina, as the keynote speaker at NSC's Spring Safety Conference and Expo. His keynote address is titled 7 Habits of Highly Effective Safety and Health Professionals. A proud Minnesotan who is not afraid to take a cold plunge into an icy lake or a hike in below zero temperatures, Jason is an accomplished speaker and trainer who helps companies embrace change and achieve breakthrough EHS performance. Jason, we applaud you for your bravery in those icy cold waters, and we thank you for joining us this month on the Safe Side.
Yeah, Barry, thank you so much for the opportunity. And you and Kevin and Alan, we say in Minnesota, the lake's always open. So you guys, hey, come on up anytime. We'll cut a hole for you.
We appreciate that. Appreciate the invitation. So, Jason, where we wanted to start with you this month is why is building or strengthening your habits so important for safety and health professionals?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I think it's really important first to acknowledge where this came from. Like, did Jason just make up these 7 habits? Did I read a couple books and observe a couple professionals and say, wow, that's interesting. Yeah, let's make up 7 habits and then hopefully we can sell a couple keynotes. Like no. Right, let's talk about the background real quick before we get to that question. This is based on more than a decade of qualitative research obsessing over, studying, learning from entry level, mid level, and then executive level EHS professionals on what are the differentiators, the habits, the things they do that differentiates them from the pack, that takes them from good to great to exceptional. So that's the first piece. And then we spoke with more than now 350 EHS professionals in this type of context where we would just have a one-on-one conversation. And I'd ask them, what do they do? What do some of their colleagues do? What are former leaders and bosses? What have they done to differentiate them, deliver for their teams, their organizations, and their people? So that's an important piece to reference and set the context there. Now, why is building or strengthening habits important for EHS professionals? Well, the research is very clear on this, guys. 40 to 50% of our daily behaviors are habitual. And so you can look at that and you can be like, wow, so you're telling me, Jason, that half of my day I'm on autopilot? That's exactly what I'm telling you. And so if we just wake up and we grab a coffee and then we kind of cozy over here and we make ourselves a bowl of Cheerios and then we kind of stumble over and we go sit at our desk and then we pop the computer and then it's like probably not the most effective way to be as impactful as we can be as an EHS professional. And so why are habits so important? Because just know about half your day you are on autopilot. And so the question is which habits are serving you and the people that you are intending to serve? And then which of those habits are not delivering the impact that you are here to deliver, both within your organization and while you're here on this planet? So it's important because they determine a significant amount of our behaviors, which, as you guys know, especially determine a significant amount of the results that we create day to day.
So, Jason, what are some ways our audience can tell if they have good or bad habits?
Yeah, that's a great question because we all have good and bad habits, myself included. I think sometimes, if you see a podcast host or a speaker, you're like, wow, he or she, they've got it all figured out. They've got it all together. It's like, let's be really clear, guys. That is not the case. Every human being on the planet has what I'll call healthy and unhealthy habits. And so how do we tell? I think the first thing is results. Like results don't lie. Like take a look at how is the health of your marriage if you're married, right? What does the doctor say about your statistics when it comes to your doctor visit? What are the results there? And then if you look at the performance for you in your annual or quarterly or monthly review with your boss or leader, what do they tell you? Because your results are a direct reflection of your habits. How are you showing up in the world each day? So that's high level, but that's a little bit too theoretical for many people, right? EHS, right? We love tactical, actionable. And so let me give you something a little more specific. This is what I would do if I wanted to understand if I had healthy or unhealthy habits. I would go through my day and I would just write all of the habits that I did. I brushed my teeth, took a shower, right? Hopefully we all do those two things more often than not, right? Do I have water first thing in the morning or do I run straight to coffee? Like it's important to understand that caffeine doesn't even hit the system until more than 90 minutes after we wake up. It's called an adenosine process. You can look that more up, and we're not going to get into the physiology of it today, but it's important to wait 90 minutes before you even have caffeine so it can hit you a little bit harder and last a little bit longer. And then what I would do is I would write down each of my habits throughout the day, and I would put a positive sign, plus sign, do this in a journal, right? Write a positive for that looks like a healthy habit. Woke up, brushed my teeth, took a shower. Two good things. Great. Right? And then I would maybe look at a negative habit, another thing that I did. Immediately walk down to my computer without going outside for some fresh air and some natural light. Well, it's probably not the best habit to get into just to stare at electronics all day without any fresh nature, right? Or without any human connection. So I'd give that one a negative. And then a neutral might be something like, I don't know, what would be a neutral habit in our world? I don't know. Audience is pretty creative. They'll think of something, but that's what I would do. I'd just take a day, go through all the habits or the general behaviors, positive, negative, and then neutral by them. And that'll give you a pretty objective idea of where your habits are at, healthy or unhealthy.
How can safety pros take their first steps and get started on this effort?
Yeah, it's an important question because, we hear a lot of ideas. Everyone these days are trying to sell you the six-pack abs in 6 minutes, right? It's like the couch to 5K in 5 days. It's like, hey guys, like that doesn't exist. Like there's no such thing as that. What's the old adage that's now the new adage? It's this idea that cheap dopamine is the most expensive. Cheap dopamine is the most expensive. And so how do we earn our dopamine? How do we do that? How can EHS professionals take their first steps? The first thing is vision. And it's such a cliche. You got to have a compelling vision. You got to have goals. But it's like, you do. That's why people have been talking about it since biblical times, right? Where there is no vision, the people will perish. You got to have some idea on where you're going. Otherwise, any road will lead you to nowhere, I think is what's been said, or someday will lead to a place called nowhere. There's all kinds of quotes on that. You guys would know them better than me. But I just ask people first, get clear on where you're headed. What does good look like for you? What does good look like for your marriage? What does good look like for your team? What does good look like for your organization? Paint that clear picture first and foremost. And then what I would do is I would just start small. It's one of the biggest mistakes people make, guys. That's why January 19th every year is called National Quitters Day. What does that mean? It's because people set these massive one-time goals and resolutions, and this is the year I'm going to change everything. And they bite off way more than they can chew. And by January 19th, about 89% or so of people have completely fallen flat on their New Year's resolutions because they tried to do too much. We're all guilty of it. And so my encouragement would be to start small. And I love what James Clear says about this. This is a book I can't recommend enough, Atomic Habits. I believe it's the best book ever written on habits, one of arguably the best books ever written. And this is what he says. He says, just start small. 5 good minutes of push-ups is a solid workout. 5 good minutes of sprints will leave you winded. 5 good minutes of writing can deliver 1 good page. 5 good minutes of reading can finish an insightful article. 5 good minutes of meditation can entirely reset your mood and your state of mind. We often overestimate the impact of massive, right, New Year's resolutions in these huge achievements that we set and these massive goals. Those aren't bad things, but we overestimate those, and then we underestimate the impact of tiny incremental gains done time after time after time. Another way to say it, guys, is consistency will always beat intensity. Right? And for those of you out there that are in a committed relationship, you know this. If you take one blowout vacation with your spouse once a year, good luck having a healthy marriage, because all you're going to talk about is all of the things that you didn't talk about throughout the year on all of those date nights that you didn't do. Intensity is let's go around the world in this massive cruise. And consistency is, what if we just went on a date night for a couple hours every couple weeks? You want to have a healthy marriage? Aim for consistency over intensity. You want to be healthy in your physical health? Aim for consistency over intensity. You want to be an effective EHS professional? Right? Don't go out and engage with the workers once a week for 9 hours. Go out there for about 19 minutes every single day. Really connect, understand work is done versus work is imagined. Understand how you can further support the environment and the workers that are within that environment. So all of that said, start small, aim for progress, not perfection.
Well, Jason, now that we have some ideas on where to start, are there mileposts or moments along the way that can signal that you're headed in the right direction?
Yeah, this is one of the most difficult pieces, and I think it's really important to understand this distinction. And this is from Dan Sullivan. It's called the gap versus the gain. It's a really important concept. I just came across it a few years ago, but really been studying it, and it's shifted the way I approach goals, and it's shifted the way I approach habits. And this is just what Dan Sullivan says. He says, most of us live in the gap, which keeps us stuck in comparison mode and leads to burnout and anxiety. What's the gap? Well, the gap is this. The gap is when you measure yourself against an ideal future or an ideal version of yourself that you haven't reached yet. That's the gap, which is going to lead to frustration, dissatisfaction, feelings of inferiority. versus what is the gain, right? The gain is when you measure yourself against past progress, who I used to be, appreciating how far you've come rather than how far you have left to go. And for those of you that understand this, you understand the level and the depth of gratitude for the work that you've done to become who you've currently become. And I'll just share an example, guys. I've only been getting paid to speak professionally for a little over 6 months. But what people don't realize is in my EHS career, I've been speaking for about 13 years for free. And guess what? I sucked for about the first 5 years. It was like my palms would get sweaty. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't understand how to spin a story. And then when I did tell a story, I didn't make sure to have a message that actually impacted the audience. I just shared a story because people tell you storytelling's powerful in speaking. It's like, no, it's not. Storytelling's not powerful. The only reason to share a story is to share a message, a moral, or a principle that somehow leaves the audience better than you found them. You don't just tell stories. You don't tell a story, you're wasting my time. And I didn't understand any of this. So I was trying to do so much and measuring myself against some of the best speakers in the world because that's who you see on YouTube now, guys. And it was miserable. And then now I take a look at just maybe even like a week ago or 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. And I'm like, man, like I've come a long way, much less 8, 9, or 10 years ago. I've come a long way. So instead of feeling less than by focusing on who I thought I could be, you actually start feeling okay about yourself because you're grateful for the work that you've done and the people in the process who have come alongside you and really served and supported you to become who currently you are today. So that's a really important distinction, the gap versus the gain. So my point in sharing that, guys, is to celebrate every win, especially when it comes to habits. You get up, you make your bed, celebrate that win. That's a big deal for some people, especially if you're struggling. You make your bed, you go, hey, you come home at night, you're like, man, that was a hard day. Man, that was like one of the most difficult days I've had in weeks. You come home, you go, I got a pretty clean room. And that feels good. Like Jordan Peterson talks a lot about this. Like there's a lot of people struggling right now. And if you can just start really, really small, make your bed, brush your teeth, take a shower. You could have just a brutal day, but you come home and you go, I checked a couple boxes today. I moved the needle today. And EHS, man, it is a tough role. People work their tails off. And every EHS professional I know cares as much as anybody I know. And oftentimes they don't get any credit for the work that they do, but they get all the credit in the world when something doesn't go perfect and someone or something gets hurt. And so, man, in EHS, celebrate every little win. It might not seem like a big ideal. Don't compare yourself to who you can be. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday. And then be grateful for the work you've done to get to where you are today.
Finally, what would you like attendees to take away from your presentation in Charlotte?
Yeah, it's an important question. It's a difficult one. We're going to talk about 7 habits of highly effective safety and health professionals. Like that's the title. But what would I like them to take away? I think everyone at some point over these last few years has hit some type of roadblock or speed bump or like life. Let's just face it, right? Since 2020, like life has been hard for a lot of people. And a lot of people have been really thriving during this time. So let's not step over that. But I think the most important gift, right? The most valuable gift that I could give to people, and my buddies were just over last night and we were chatting, and they're EHS professionals and they're incredible. They're executives at big companies. They're rocking it, man. And we're sitting in the sauna in my backyard in Minnesota. We got in the snow a couple times, guys, because of course you have to if you're in the sauna. And we're chatting and we're like, what do you remember about the last 10 years of conferences that you've gone to? We're having this conversation in the sauna, and they're like, well, we don't really remember most of the conferences we've gone to, which almost anyone can relate to that. And I said, well, tell me this, what conferences do you remember and why? And these are EHS specific conferences. And then this is what they said. They said, number one, I made a connection that changed my life. Like they met someone that made them better and they made someone else better. Number two, I walked away with something tangible that I could implement that made my life and the lives of others better. And then number 3, they said there was some type of peak emotional experience. Could have been like a live band was brought in, could have been a keynote speaker, had one thing to say, where like really like energized or charged the room up. And so I think the greatest gift that I could deliver, at the NSC Spring Conference is one of those things for people. Somehow connect them with someone else that changes some way their life, big or small. Right? Somehow create a peak moment or experience for them where 10 years from now, they somehow connect and they remember that time in Charlotte, man, that was awesome for this reason or that. Or they take away just one thing, one habit that they choose to start micro experimenting, start small, for the purpose of somehow elevating their impact and influence and somehow moving the needle within their organization or outside their organization in their personal life. So I think that would be an honor to be able to deliver any of those for your attendees.
Well, Jason, we thank you for sharing your insights with us. If you want to see Jason's keynote presentation live on April 24th in Charlotte, please visit the Spring Safety Conference and Expo website at ssce.nsc.org. We appreciate you joining us on the safe side, Jason.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. Pumped to spend some time with the team in April in Charlotte. We'll see you all soon.
A traditional or modern 5th anniversary gift is either silverware or an item made of wood. Seeing as our podcast needs neither of those, we'll instead accept any of your fond memories from the 5 years of this endeavor. You can send those and any well wishes to safehealth@nsc.org. Now we'll gift you with some of our favorite memories in the 5 years of On the Safe Side in this segment. And I'll go first. The first one is, we've talked about many times, I think, among ourselves about kind of how we began right before COVID. We had to go into our homes and use various kinds of. We've used a couple of different platforms and just kind of learning as we go. And it was the third episode. We brought on former OSHA inspector Paul McNeil. And I remember it just something happened and we couldn't get into whatever recording program. And it was just everybody's, I think, has been there where it's just like this vice grip of stress and anxiety because you feel our embarrassment or something like that. But Paul was so great with with just being so patient. I think it took like 20 minutes for us to figure
He
that
rolled
out.
with the
So
punches, didn't
he
he?
really did.
Yeah.
And then my other favorite memory was our live taping on Congress and Expo floor with former OSHA leader Doug Parker. I thought it was a really great interview, and because as of this recording, we do have a name for perhaps the next OSHA leader, or likely the next OSHA leader, in Dave Keeling. I'd like to invite him to join our show in Denver. Kevin, what about you?
I'll kind of take that baton for a first memory as far as the live tapings at Congress. Remember one, it was October 2021 when we returned to the live Congress post COVID. We were in Orlando, and a friend of the podcast, noted guest and noted Star Wars fan Tim Page Bodorf joined us on the show floor, and I distinctly remember Barry's greeting him and knowing Tim's background in that space saga. He said, "Chewie, we're home." Just the
Yeah.
magic of being in person and just the power of connection, as we just heard from Jason, as we've heard at so many conferences and so many podcasts that you've listened to
Hmm.
over the years. So that just was truly a neat moment. And I mean, you don't need to know a whole heck of a lot about Tim to know the power of his personality, and it went double or triple just because of what had preceded us in COVID
Yeah.
and that time as well. Um, I mentioned the nickname for Chewbacca. I'm not going to talk indirectly about a beast that is real and not fictitious, and that was a memory from episode 47 when Rich Fairfax joined us to discuss changes to OSHA's record-keeping requirements. And as he always does, whether it's in print or if you see him in person or on this podcast, he offered a number of memorable anecdotes. But the one that sticks with me and always will is one he told about a worker in rural Georgia who had wrestled a feral pig who had snuck behind the worker to snag his lunch. And Rich had the quote. He said, "Needless to say, the pig won." Um, and it just again was very colorful.
We'll always
Yeah.
remember that one for
Yeah,
sure.
that
For
was great.
sure.
Oh
And
my
then
gosh.
mhm. In closing, I really and truly am unsure of the source of my Craig T. Nelson obsession, or I'll call it an innocent fondness and not an obsession. And I know
Yeah,
that has
that's
been
better.
whether yes, whether it nags people or not, it's kind of become a little thing with the History Huddle with the Congress episodes, and whether there's any correlation to Coach or not, I'm not sure there will be in Denver. But to keep current, Craig T. does have a new movie out called Green and Gold. And check it out if you like. It's pretty good. The man's 80 years old, which I didn't realize, and it's a pretty good movie. It's about farming, it's about family, and it's briefly about football. But it's also the last role of the late M. Emmett Walsh, who we all probably know as former sports writers ourselves. He was a sports writer, Dickie Dunn, and Slapshot. Barry, how about some of your memories?
Well, Kevin, I truly appreciate the story that Rich Fairfax shared. And I think the takeaway that Rich was trying to give was that is a recordable injury.
Right.
Bottom line,
Sure.
because it happened on the company's property. Always a nice sidebar to that story. So I'm going to take us back to episode 1. We were in our studio in our NSC offices, and we had our first guest, which was Richard Hawk, Safety and Health columnist, podcaster, speaker, music lover. And I remember to this day talking to Richard about kind of his musical heroes as a guitar player. And he mentioned Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin. We had a great talk about music with Richard Hawk. So that was a fond memory. And I also wanted to share 2 of our most popular episodes in the history of our podcast. And they were 3 months apart. Episode 19 in September of 2021. And that episode was about first one-person safety teams and also post-pandemic ergonomic challenges. And that was, our guest was Julia Abate, who is at the Ergonomics Center at North Carolina State University. And I know Julia has spoken at Congress previously and was a great source for us. And then 3 months later, in December of 2021, one of our top episodes of all time was episode 22. And that one focused on combating complacency in the workplace. And we also had, our speaker was John Capecci. John is a communications consultant and specialist. And he talked to us about speaking skills for safety and health professionals. So those are 2 episodes that really jump out to me. But I would say we could probably fill an entire episode with memories. This has been a great venture for us here at Safety and Health, and we enjoy doing it. And we always welcome your feedback at safehealth@nsc.org. So if you ever have an idea, a thought, a comment, feel free to shoot us a note.
Well, thank you both for a great discussion. As always, we remind listeners to please stay tuned to safetyandhealthmagazine.com and our social media channels for the latest news and updates. Is there something you want to make sure we didn't miss? Email us at safehealth@nsc.org.
Congress designated April as Distracted Driving Awareness Month in 2010. As part of its observance of the month, the National Safety Council offers numerous resources intended to help limit the risk of crashes related to distracted driving while making the road safer for everyone. Here to discuss how distraction impacts workers who drive is Amy Artuso, who serves as Senior Program Manager 3, Mobility Safety Impact at NSC. Amy, thank you for joining us on the Safe Side.
Thanks for having me.
To start, what are the primary types of distraction that occur when people are driving, and what are some common examples?
Sure. There are 3 main types of distractions behind the wheel: visual, cognitive, and manual. Visual distractions include anything that takes your eyes off the road, from checking your phone or built-in vehicle touchscreens to looking for lost items on the floor of your vehicle. Cognitive distractions include anything that takes your mind off of driving, from phone calls, including hands-free, to fatigue or being tired, stress, or even conversations with passengers. Manual distractions include anything that takes your hands off the steering wheel, from texting and adjusting your GPS to eating or reaching into the back seat. And several of those examples include more than one type of distraction. So to put it simply, if it takes your eyes off the road, your hands off the wheel, or your mind off of driving, it's a distraction.
Last year, during a distracted driving panel discussion hosted by NSC and OSHA, our president and CEO, Lorraine Martin, called on workplaces to, quote, lean into, unquote, distracted driving prevention efforts. What actions can employers and workers take to help curb distracted driving?
So the first step is recognizing distracted driving for the workplace risk that it is, and then commit to preventing it, just like any other workplace danger. Car crashes are already the leading cause of work-related deaths, and distracted driving crashes kill more than 3,000 people each year. So to help address distracted driving in the workplace, employers can start by making sure they have a safe driving policy. This can be a simple document that outlines the risks of distracted driving, gives an overview of your organization's policy on it, and asks employees to avoid distractions behind the wheel to keep themselves and others safe. And just like other workplace or HR policies, you can share it with your employees and ask them to sign it. To help, NSC offers a template policy as part of our free Distracted Driving Awareness Month materials, and that's available at nsc.org/justdrive. The next step is to set the example and reinforce your organization's policy on distracted driving. To do that, be sure your leadership understands the dangers of distracted driving, signs your safe driving policy themselves, and sets the example by always avoiding these risks behind the wheel. This also means leadership shouldn't expect employees to be available for phone calls, texts, or emails when you know they're driving. And leadership or managers shouldn't reach out to employees when they're driving either. If people can get into the habit on the job, employers and workers can continue it off the job, and this will help keep even more people safe.
Which distracted driving resources and guidance from NSC or other areas would you recommend to listeners?
Each April, NSC observes Distracted Driving Awareness Month to put a special focus on these dangers and to share free resources to address these risks. This year, we have resources from all across the council, including posters, the latest articles from Safety+Health magazine, our Just Drive pledge, a new video featuring the stories of those impacted by distracted driving crashes, and even live virtual sessions with experts to discuss distracted driving. You can sign up for these free materials at nsc.org/justdrive, and they're available all year long. We also offer additional resources for NSC members, including toolkits to share with your workers, educational videos, and more. NSC also offers distracted driving online training courses for employees and for fleet drivers, specifically to help your employees always make it home safely. Listeners can learn more about these courses at nsc.org/DDC, and be sure to get your free Distracted Driving Awareness Month materials at nsc.org/justdrive.
Well, excellent, Amy. Great stuff. And thank you for joining us to lend your insights and expertise on this important topic.
Thank you for having me and for highlighting this important topic. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. We appreciate your and the team's help as always.
We thank you for joining us for this month's episode of On the Safe Side. We understand your time is valuable, and we appreciate you spending some of it with us wherever you're listening. We encourage you to visit our website, safetyandhealthmagazine.com/podcasts, to check out any of our past episodes. That includes episode 50, in which we talk to the aforementioned Tim Page-Bodorf of SafeStart, and he discusses the debate between Safety 1 and Safety 2 in episode 50. We think you'll enjoy that discussion. A special thank you goes out to this episode's sponsor, the National Association of Safety Professionals. Please visit them online at naspweb.com. The original music for this podcast was composed by Steve Maslin. Thank you, Steve. And a big thank you to all of our NSC colleagues behind the scenes who have made this podcast go for 5 years and hopefully many more. We'll be back next month to have more safety-related discussions, talk to trusted voices from around the profession, and hopefully make you smile a little. In the meantime, please stay on the safe side.